Yeats. If a powerful and benevolent spirit has shaped the destiny of this world, we can better gather that destiny through the words that have shaped the heart's desire of the world. And that's exactly what William Butler Yeats did. He caught the heart's desire. He caught it in language which is beautiful and which is dripping in imagery, and particularly in the early poems, mysticism, the Song of Wandering Aengus, the Stolen Child. Joyce said of him that he had a surrealist imagination few painters could match. He was born in 1865 to John Butler Yeats, the son of a rector in the Church of Ireland, and to Susan Pollexfen, whose shipbuilding family came from Sligo, where Yeats, at his request, is buried beneath Ben Bulben's head. His epitaph: "Cast a cold eye on life, on death. Horsemen, pass by." Yeats learned early that art is what matters. His father was a solicitor, and he gave up his practice to study painting in London. Indeed, Yeats later studied art in Dublin, before, in one of literature's luckiest volte-face, he decided on poetry. The publication in 1889, when Yeats was 24, of The Wanderings of Usheen was a seminal moment, not only in Irish literary history, but also its political history. Yeats's book, based on the Fenial cycle, brought Irish mythology to the Irish people in English, the language, as he pointed out, in which modern Ireland thinks and does its business. This was at a time in Ireland when there was a powerful movement to rescue the Gaelic language. In Irish literature, Yeats resembles a tidal wave, and the tide was not only poetical. In 1904, Yeats set up the National Theatre of Ireland, the Abbey Theatre, with Lady Gregory, and he worked unceasingly as playwright and director in its cause. In his Nobel speech to the Swedish Academy, he chose as his subject the Irish dramatic movement. "I would not be here were I not the symbol of that movement. The nationalism we called up was both romantic and poetical." Well, up to a point. Yeats had a genius, a generous genius for discovering genius in others, and amongst those he discovered were two of Ireland's greatest, Synge and O'Casey. Their plays were poetical, certainly. Romantic, not necessarily. The Abbey audience, probably the most hypersensitive in history, rioted, enraged by the portrait of themselves in Synge's The Playboy of the Western World and O'Casey's The Plough and the Stars. Yeats harangued them from the stage. "You have disgraced yourselves again." And he persevered. This strength of character and courage in the face of prejudice, which was noted by Eliot, is fundamental to his astonishing achievements. He once tried to get a bill of divorcement through the Irish Senate. He failed. That he tried at all is remarkable. Finally, he refused to allow himself to be destroyed by the agony of his unreciprocated lifelong obsession with Maud Gonne, an obsession that would have felled lesser men. She exploded into his life in 1889, just after the publications of The Wanderings of Usheen. She was young, 22, tall, with flaming red hair, but it was her passion that began all the trouble of my life. She took possession of his soul, and when the soul is lost, all is lost. He had found the love of his life. She, an ardent Republican, had perhaps found a poet for the cause. She was a magnificent creature, brave but dangerous. She lived in storm and strife. Her soul had such desire for what proud death may bring, that it could not endure the common good of life. And therein lies the pity. Her fanaticism swept away much that was good in her life. His enduring love, expressed in poems of genius, gave us the haunting poetry of the exultant yet broken heart. A woman Homer sung, no second Troy. He wishes for the cloths of heaven, the folly of being comforted, and many, many more. She married the revolutionary Sean MacBride. The confirmation of their marriage was, Yeats said, like lightning through me. Yeats, in his 50s, finally married Georgie Hyde Leeds, with whom he had 2 children. Easter 1916, his greatest political poem, of which he wrote many, Parnell's Funeral, September 1913, The Ghost of Roger Casement, was inspired by the tragic military failure of the rebellion led by Patrick Pearse, who, with other leaders of the rebellion, including Sean MacBride, was executed. The iconic line, "A terrible beauty is born," contains both a warning and a blessing. The rhythms and repetitions in this poem seem to keep pace with the destiny of the men. Hearts to one purpose alone through summer and winter seem enchanted to a stone to trouble the living stream. Too long a sacrifice can make a stone of the heart, oh, when may it suffice? Yeats, uniquely amongst poets, wrote some of his greatest poetry in his 60s and 70s. Eliot wrote of this late work, "Maturing as a poet means maturing as a whole man. Out of his intense experience, he now expressed universal truths. An artist, by serving his art with his entire integrity, is at the same time rendering the greatest service he can to his country and to the whole world." The late poems include The Municipal Gallery Revisited, The Statues, and The Circus Animal's Desertion, a poem in which the thread is pulled taut between life and art. "Maybe at last, being but a broken man, I must be satisfied with my heart," and continues, "Now that my ladder's gone, I must lie down where all ladders start, in the foul rag and bone shop of the heart."